We have all been jealous at some point in our lives. On closer inspection, however, we see that it contains a deeper component, almost like an unseen layer, that few can first recognize. When we attempt to arouse envy, we are dealing with a strategy that reflects something much more profound: insecurity, rather than simply a normal emotion. Love or hatred are not the causes of this kind of conduct. It is a mix of anxiety and desperation that is often passed off as confidence. By playing emotional games, the person who behaves in this manner tries to conceal his own inner doubts, thinking he can control the other. But in reality, he is struggling with his own weakness. It's interesting how envy often reflects something we feel is our responsibility. In actuality, however, when someone tries to elicit this feeling from you, what is being exposed is their internal conflict rather than yours. According to research, persons who behave in ways that incite envy often do so in an effort to get approval from others. To cover a gap that can really only be addressed within, they use deceptive and sometimes theatrical tactics. In reality, their demonstration of dominance is really an illusion. Furthermore, this external look is based on a shaky basis that quickly crumbles in the presence of an emotionally clear person. Consider this: attempting to ensnare someone in a web of insecurity is a last-ditch attempt to stay relevant and avoid conflict with one's own concerns. This makes me wonder how important it is to be true to ourselves, because we end up projecting our shadows onto other people when we are not honest. This is what takes place here. You are not the target of the jealousy they are trying to arouse. It didn't occur. It concerns them and their frantic effort to hide their own frailties. People who surpass these tactics, who remain steadfast and firmly grounded in their own selves, show that there is a better way. It's not easy, of course. Self-awareness, inner fortitude, and often a stillness that transcends words are all necessary for this process. This quiet is a deliberate choice to stay out of anything that does not offer value, not an act of omission. It is no longer a choice to realize that jealousy is only an expression of other people's fears. Instead, proceed in a kind and safe manner, free from the burden of handling feelings that are not your responsibility. To put it simply, envy has never been a sign of weakness. He is a picture, a mirror that reflects what the other person does not want to see in themselves, rather than who we are. Recognizing this is similar to turning the key to unlock a door. Feeling guilty or stuck in an emotional loop that we did not start is no longer essential. Everything is changed by this vision. It grants us authority over ourselves, not over other people. This is sufficient to destroy any manipulation effort. Knowing that is freeing, isn't it? Because you acquire fresh understanding when you realize that envy is not aimed at you. Recognize that you don't have to respond, defend yourself, or change to meet the demands of those who haven't yet found inner peace. Our lack of interest is not implied by this. This shows that, despite the fact that we are unable to alleviate the anguish that someone bears inside themselves, we make the decision to look after our energies and spirit. Knowing that this duty was never ours offers us comfort in knowing that nobody can take it from us. It's interesting how people who try to control us eventually come out when we remove ourselves from these relationships. Not only to us, but to everyone around us, they make their wants and weaknesses clear. The mask seems to peel off, revealing what they have been trying so hard to conceal. We all have times of vulnerability. Thus, this should not be a cause for censure, but rather for compassion. How we choose to handle things makes a difference. Some people confront and grow from their shadows. Unfortunately, some people attempt to dominate their surroundings by projecting their problems onto others because they are unable to handle their own issues. Thus, sustaining our own energy is essential. Nothing outside of ourselves can shake us when we realize who we are and how valuable we are. Naturally, this does not mean that we will never encounter difficulties. This suggests, however, that we may respond to challenges with composure and clarity rather than with dread or uncertainty. And it makes all the difference, because you no longer feel the urge to play a game when they're enjoying themselves while attempting to do so. This is what emotional freedom really means. It's realizing that you don't have to prove anything to anybody. Realizing that even if they are caught up in their own maze of doubt, you are heading in the direction of what is really valuable. This has nothing to do with conceit or superiority. Simply choosing to respect yourself and not allow yourself to be influenced by. Have you ever stopped to wonder why, despite all your achievements, it feels like something essential is still missing? My name is Gabriel, and I've helped countless people like you discover the true spiritual power that resides within them. And today, I want to help you. If you feel like life is passing by while something important remains out of place, maybe it's time for an awakening. My audiobook, The Path of the Chosen, was created precisely for those who have reached this point. In this audiobook, I guide you to feel that enthusiasm for living in alignment with what truly matters, knowing that every step has meaning. Together, we'll transform your fears, traumas, and frustrations into powerful strengths that propel you to a new level of growth. Leave behind the feeling of spiritual isolation and find the peace of a true, constant connection with a greater energy that has always been by your side. Instead of fighting against what you feel, you'll learn to find purpose, serenity, and self-discovery to fill your inner world. This could be the beginning of a fuller, more meaningful life. I've seen it happen for so many others, and now it's your turn. Don't let this opportunity slip by. Click on the link pinned in the first comment and begin this journey with The Path of the Chosen. This is your chance to fill what's missing and finally live the life you deserve. I'll be waiting for you there. Anything that does not reflect who you really are. And when that choice is made with sincerity, it becomes a lighthouse. Not for you alone, but for everyone in your vicinity. There's a huge impact when you select this emotional freedom. In the face of your inner power, manipulation attempts that formerly seemed intricate and even difficult start to fall apart. The game seemed to have lost all of its significance, and anybody attempting to control it was left confused and unsure of what to do next. The person who tries to incite envy is used to receiving responses. This helps to justify your behavior and preserve the image of having some kind of power. She encounters her own emptiness, however, when you don't react as she would have imagined. You did not create this emptiness. Though concealed by deception techniques that seemed effective in other contexts, it was always there. The difference is that you grow impervious to these tactics if you maintain your composure, security, and sense of worth. This does not mean ignoring or being unconcerned, but rather realizing that your sole duty is to take care of your own equilibrium and welfare. When someone attempts to control you, they are, even if subtly, revealing their own weaknesses. She believes that she may escape the internal disorder that consumes her by creating havoc around herself. We are aware, nonetheless, that this is untrue. Only when we go within and face our pain, can we really change. Furthermore, nobody else is capable of completing this voyage. When you get this, you see that compassion is about setting an example of balance rather than caving into someone's manipulation. His inaction is a quiet reminder that there is a better way to live, not an act of cruelty. You are not here to prove yourself, to compete for attention, or to meet the demands of someone who hasn't yet discovered their own path. It's enough that you come into this world to be honest with yourself. There is a kind of energy isolation created by this inward alignment. It keeps you from being sucked into relationships that don't fit with who you really are. And since it stems from a profound awareness of its worth, this protection is inherent rather than forced. It is much easier to see what does not align with your core when you have a clear understanding of who you are, what you desire, and what you deserve. This includes those who attempt to control you. It's just about avoiding becoming engaged with things that don't contribute or elevate. It's not about rejecting or eliminating them. Something much more fascinating occurs throughout this procedure. The one who formerly appeared to have complete power over you starts to feel irrelevant and perplexed. When she realizes that her efforts to manipulate you are failing, she is forced to confront her own vulnerability, something she has always shunned. This weakness provides an opportunity for growth rather than a threat. Many people, however, are against this process since they are used to the same cycle of control and manipulation. However, you've already moved beyond that. It is precisely this transcendence that tests them. Observing events develop while you decide not to respond has a certain lyrical quality. You're not making a concerted effort to prove anything. He's just living by his values. That is already a success in and of itself. Real power comes from mastering oneself, not from dominating or influencing others. It serves as a powerful reminder that control over your own emotions and energies is the only fully applicable mastery. The rest is just an accessory. The most endearing aspect is that you inspire people to follow your example by maintaining your honesty. Your enthusiasm has an impact, but perhaps not immediately, or as you had hoped. The example you set may ultimately affect even those who attempted to control you. Because at our core, we all want the same things: a greater awareness of our true selves, inner peace, and genuine connection. Some individuals get lost along the road and start looking for these things from other sources, like attention, control, or affirmation. In actuality, however, we already own all of this. We just must keep in mind. By deciding to live this manner, you allow others to follow in your footsteps in addition to releasing yourself. This is not your responsibility, but it also does not mean that everyone will accept or understand your approach. The most important thing is to keep on course, knowing that you are precisely where you should be. No matter how complicated a relationship seems, this alone has the power to alter it. This vision is a gift for everyone you come into contact with, not just for you. You become a beacon when you choose to be real. To show that there is another way of being that is not predicated on games, manipulations, or control. Not to provide advice to others. A manner that honors your true self. Furthermore, this cannot be transferred. Jealousy-based manipulation is essentially a reflection of the inner conflicts of individuals who attempt to use it. They seem to be projecting their weaknesses and anxieties onto you in the hopes that you would conquer what they are unable to do on their own. Based on deep-seated fears that need validation at any costs, this prediction is rife with skewed expectations. They seem to be really hoping for a reaction that gives them the impression that they still have some influence or significance when they attempt to play an emotional game with you. But what if they encounter someone who has an unwavering sense of self-worth? When they encounter the lack of response and indifference of someone who has already outgrown these games, they fall prey to their own mental traps, making them defenseless. The power they believe they have over you is an illusion they manufactured, and they are unaware of this. They believe that the reasoning for their actions, the need for dominance, the want for approval, and the fear of rejection will be followed. But when you don't cooperate, something important occurs. The screenplay they wrote loses all of its significance. All of their expectations and fears are returned to you by your emotional independence, which serves as a barrier. At this point, the deception starts to fall apart, exposing their vulnerability rather than yours. A fundamental rule of human relationships is revealed by this dynamic. No one has the authority to emotionally control you without your will, and you break the pattern by refusing to give in to these games. Naturally, this doesn't mean you're insensitive or unaware of other people's feelings. Rather, it means you realize that your energy is too important to be squandered on things that don't make you feel better. This self-awareness leads to this clarity. It's a lot easier to see when someone is attempting to undermine you when you know who you are and what you deserve. Jealousy-driven manipulation also exposes the immaturity of the people who engage in it. They seem to be stuck in a win-or-lose mindset, where the goal is to show that they are in charge rather than to establish a real relationship. But in actuality, dominance is only a feeling. Authentically controlling someone's emotions is impossible. They only succeed in creating a fleeting illusion that always breaks down when confronted with the inner power of a person who is unwilling to give up. It is better to regard this immaturity with compassion rather than rage or hurt. Ultimately, we have all had instances when we have projected our fears onto other people. The bravery to confront these projections and work toward overcoming them is what separates individuals who grow from those who stay static. By refusing to respond to efforts at manipulation, you not only protect your own energy, but also offer the other person an opportunity, albeit a brief one, to think about what they are doing. You remain concentrated on your own path as they strive to gain a reaction from you. This does not mean that you learn about what is happening, but that you decide not to let it affect you negatively. This attitude is both a show of authority and a gesture of resistance. True strength, in contrast to popular belief, comes from mastering oneself rather than others. Those that attempt manipulation get confused as a result of this. They anticipate that you will capitulate, respond, or otherwise validate your behavior. When this doesn't occur, however, they are compelled to acknowledge that the authority they thought they had over you never existed. Freedom is made possible by this breakdown of emotional control, because you relieve yourself of a weight that was not yours to carry when you realize that your worth is not determined by the acts of others. You become a tangible example of how to overcome the expectations and projections of others while maintaining your inner peace along the way. One thing that no one can take away from you is that this knowledge offers a profoundly transformational emotional freedom. It's as if you can now view things for what they really are, free from the emotional distortions of others. Acknowledge that you don't have to answer every question or provide evidence or justification to anybody. You get a sense of power from this that is greater than any manipulation, because it is an internal strength that originates from your relationship with yourself. You keep moving ahead as you look for solutions and strive incessantly to stay relevant by playing emotional games. And of all the accomplishments, this is the most important. You chose your peace of mind above everything else, not because you achieved anything. Something like this is impossible to assess. This is how living in accordance with your own truth differs from living to please other people. Furthermore, this is the only choice that ultimately has any actual worth. Something in you changes permanently when you decide to live in your truth. Your life is no longer impacted by manipulation, control, or emotional games. This means that you are no longer adversely affected by what is occurring, not that you are no longer aware of it. You appear to be gaining a new level of clarity that will allow you to identify the ulterior motives behind the acts of those who would want to keep you stuck in these cycles of uncertainty. Recognize that these people are behaving out of fear rather than force. One gains an even greater sense of emotional liberation by realizing this. Those who try to control this freedom become confused and frustrated. They are used to seeing dependable replies, ones that validate their behavior and bolster their feeling of control. However, what was previously a secure and predictable sector becomes uncharted ground when you come across someone who does not react as you had anticipated. At this point, the person who attempted to manage the story starts to lose self-control, because their whole scheme collapses without your help. One of the most important truths we may learn is that you are the only one accountable for the feelings and actions of others. When someone mirrors their fears back to you, it's an indication of what they haven't been able to work through on their own. You have nothing to do with this. This perspective alters your perception of encounters. Instead of seeing other people's actions as something that has to be fixed or resolved, begin to see them as a reflection of the difficulties they are facing. This knowledge not only sets you free, but it also brings you peace, because you preserve energy for what is really important by not responding to their efforts at manipulation. You may now focus on your own development, goals, and path, instead of being distracted by these draining dynamics. The way you live is totally altered by this phenomena. Recognize that you don't have to participate in cycles that don't align with your own self anymore. And when you behave in this manner, you start drawing in events and people who are true to you. The impact of this shift on others who attempt to control you is likewise unexpected. They are compelled to confront what they have always evaded, themselves, when confronted with their apathy. They are left to deal with their own uncertainties without your input to guide their strategies. This is a potent phenomenon because the most personal facts come out when people are silent. They may attempt to deny, dismiss, or even step up their attempts to elicit a response. But none of this alters the fact that they are the root of the issue. Everyone has to deal with this truth eventually. Our personal conflicts are constantly reflected in the expectations and assumptions we place on other people. Although it is a vital phase in the growth process, it is not easy to recognize, much less control. After you comprehend this, you start to see these dynamics in a different light. You begin to see these situations as opportunities to strengthen your own power and clarity, rather than as threats or manipulations. This mindset exhibits self-love in addition to emotional maturity. For by refusing to play these games, you are telling yourself that you are worthy of something greater. And although being quiet, this sentence has a surprising amount of force. It changes how you engage with the outside world, and most importantly, with yourself. Recognize that you are sufficient just the way you are, and that you don't want validation from others to feel whole. And this knowledge gives you a power that no one can take away. The views and opinions of others lose their significance when you are aware of your own worth and self-awareness. Become the creator of your own reality, and stop being a victim of other people's expectations. It is also something that no one can control or alter. You advance as long as people continue to make their own forecasts. This development is mostly spiritual and emotional in nature, rather than only physical or material. This is a breakthrough that transcends the limitations of emotional games, because you connect with something much bigger when you decide to be in touch with your truth, something that is unaffected by other people's intents or uncertainty. And no matter what occurs around you, this connection is what gives you the energy, direction, and perseverance you need to keep going. Comparing yourself to others is a common error that gives us the false impression that our worth is correlated with their possessions, actions, or ideals. The ultimate prosperity of life, however, is not found in competing with people around you, but rather in aligning yourself with what is truly yours, what is meant to flow freely, as those who are in touch with their essence understand. There is no need for rivalry in this picture of affluence. Any effort by someone else to elicit emotional responses from you is futile at a frequency similar to yours. True strength, unlike what many people believe, comes from sticking by your convictions rather than from responding. Those who want to elicit negative responses use a limited viewpoint, predicated on the concept of scarcity. They feel that they must denigrate others, create uncertainty, or instigate conflict in order to feel significant or relevant. This reasoning does not hold true when you are in harmony with yourself, however. Understand that there is enough room for everyone to thrive in the vast cosmos, and that competition is just a distraction from what matters most, your own path. Those who attempt to control you find this detached attitude unsettling. They anticipate that you will get agitated, alter your strategy, or respond as you had intended. But if this doesn't occur, they're left stranded and have to acknowledge that their power over you is nothing. It is a sign of trust to express your aspirations rather than to compete or chase them. It serves as a reminder that what really belongs to you will find a way to get there. There's no need to fight, flee, or use force. This is not a sign of apathy, but rather a strong belief that your energy is best used to construct, create, and preserve the world you want. And others who operate at a lower frequency are unable to comprehend this. Without realizing that manifestation needs an inner force that few are ready to cultivate, they see it as inert. Transparency is the source of this power. Openness about your identity, desires, and deservingness. This makes it irrelevant if someone tries to pull you into comparison or competitive games, because you know that your trajectory is yours, and theirs is theirs. No crosses are required, and nothing has to be proven. This is the moment when the manipulator becomes really frustrated. You didn't even pick up the game pieces, but they framed every step as if you would play an emotional game. Your faith in life is reflected in your manifestation. It's realizing that what matters to you will come easily as long as you are in harmony with your truth. This does not mean that you will never face challenges or that things will be easy. Rather, It means that each step you take will get you closer to your destination. Even when someone attempts to knock you off balance, you remain composed because of this belief. You realize that the energy used on responses may be put into creating something more significant and meaningful. The cycle of competition, on the other hand, never ends. No one really wins in this game of zero outcomes. Even when there seems to be a winner, the triumph is sometimes fleeting, meaningless, and reliant on an outside factor that doesn't bring about long-term fulfillment. People who are caught in this loop are unaware that true pleasure comes from being at peace with oneself and one's choices. This is the reason the non-compete policy works so well. It allows you to concentrate on what really matters, your personal progress, by relieving you of the pressure to do better than others. The allure is that the comparisons end when the competition does. You understand that because it has nothing to do with you, you shouldn't care about what other people have or do. What's not yours was never meant to remain, but what is yours is on its way. There is an unchangeable lightness to this lucidity. You stay determined, self-assured, and focused on creating a life that represents who you really are, whereas the manipulator loses himself in his tactics, attempting to prove something to himself or others. This mindset not only helps you save energy, but it also sends a powerful message to the universe. It's like saying, I have confidence. I know who I am, and that the things that are essential to me will come to me when they're supposed to. This confidence is repaid in ways that are often unexpected, because you may accept what is in line with your goal when you connect with your soul. Nothing can take it away from you, nothing at all. You are creating your world while the other person tries to elicit emotions. Because they live in a world of scarcity and feel that they must take advantage of others in order to get more, they will never comprehend this. In actuality, however, wealth is limitless and available to those who are prepared to accept it. This mindset eliminates the need for rivalry and comparisons because it recognizes that every person has a unique path and that another person's accomplishment never lessens yours. This is the expressive power. It's not about competing, battling, or showing the world what you're capable of. It's about focusing on what you really want and trusting that the universe will provide it. It's about realizing that your priorities don't have to be dictated to you and that you would be better off focusing your energies on growing, producing, and establishing yourself. This is ultimately what separates those who are content with themselves from others who are still engaged in emotional games. When you embrace the power of manifestation, you come to understand that it is independent of other people's actions or words. It is a very personal activity, a dance between you and the universe, where confidence propels the movement and purpose clarity establishes the rhythm. Any loop of comparison is totally broken by this realization, as you are no longer comparing yourself to others for approval or gauging your own development by their experiences. The real shift happens when you focus your energies within. You are in the flow, whereas others who attempt manipulation are consumed by the need to elicit responses. Living in flow entails realizing that chasing, competing, or forcing is not necessary. What is rightfully yours will make its way into your life when the time is right. One of the biggest benefits of living a purposeful life is this conviction, which removes the worry that comparison often brings. You start to think that your time is coming and that it will be special, just the way it should be, when you stop asking yourself, why not me? And when will my moment be? On the other hand, those who work on an emotional manipulation frequency are in a different condition. Because they lack a sense of inward wholeness, they lack confidence. Their activities stem from a necessity rather than an area of agreement. They need approval from others, whether it is in the form of competition, attention, or responses. They become angry if this doesn't occur because they don't comprehend how someone can maintain such resiliency in the face of their tactics. But the solution is simple. People who are in touch with their essence don't have the time or energy to devote to non-contributing dynamics. Although it may seem cold or haughty to others, this attitude of indifference is really a sign of self-love. It involves selecting what uplifts, develops, and nourishes. It entails realizing that you are already whole and that you don't need to prove anything to anybody. Your perspective on life is totally altered by this vision. By doing away with games and comparisons, you confuse those who attempt manipulation. They have never had such a level of emotional freedom and don't know how someone can live without responding to their own efforts. Real freedom comes from realizing that your path is not the same as someone else's. Each of us is here to grow, learn, and express ourselves in ways that are specific to who we are. When you realize this, your challenges do not indicate failure, and neither does the success of others diminish you. One of the best gifts you can offer yourself is to believe that everything is a part of a larger process. Because you know that you are precisely where you should be, this self-confidence releases you from any outside pressure. The best part is that this trusting energy creates a magnetic field around you. Opportunities, people, and situations that fit your routine start to come your way. It seems as if everything that aligns with your identity is being sent to you by the cosmos in response to your conviction. Conversely, those who behave in ways that are motivated by manipulation or comparison tend to naturally remove themselves. They can't maintain a relationship with someone who doesn't agree with their tactics or play the emotional game they're attempting to play. This separation doesn't have to be forced. It happens spontaneously since different energies can't coexist for very long. This allows you to continue your travel without needless disruptions, which is a comfort. He understands that the only competition that really matters is between who you were and who you are now. If this competition can be defined in this way, it is advantageous as it implies growth rather than rivalry. Every action, no matter how little, puts you one step closer to your objective. Those that attempt to outdo you, however, are unaware of this. They are caught up in an idea where worth is determined by comparisons with other things. They think they must win in order to be content, yet this kind of success is never fulfilling. She is ephemeral as she doesn't bridge the internal divide that led to their first competition. Conversely, you are developing something much more profound and enduring, a calmness that is founded on nothing or no one but yourself. Your capacity to express yourself is maintained by this calm. Because manifesting is more than just bringing things into your life. It's about being in balance with your identity and your purpose in life. Everything around you starts to arrange itself in a manner that looks almost magical while you're living in this condition. It is not a magic, however. Rather, it is the direct outcome of living in harmony with its essence and putting faith in life's path. Furthermore, nobody has the authority to take away your security. It is yours, shaped by self-awareness, clarity, and the choice to live in accordance with its reality. You are creating a world that reflects who it really is, while others are engaged in cycles of comparison, attempting to assess their worth according to the standards of others. Furthermore, this cannot be destroyed, altered, or duplicated. It serves as a continual reminder that you are here to express yourself when and how you want, not to compete. Even well-thought-out manipulation tactics have an unavoidable irony. They ultimately disclose more about the person who performs them than about the person they are intended to influence. The manipulator reveals his true motivations and weaknesses by evaluating himself in a leadership role. There is a covert acknowledgement of one's own emotional deficiency and need for outside approval in every action, meant to arouse envy or insecurity in the other. They make a mistake in their effort to control the story, showing everyone that the power they want is just a front for their inability to control themselves. This interplay is a potent reminder that manipulation is a sign of weakness rather than strength. Those who try to manipulate other people's emotions or arouse envy are behaving out of fear rather than trust. Fear of not fitting in, not being valued, or not being significant. In reality, these attempts to create emotional upheaval are desperate attempts to distract from the manipulator's inability to handle the chaos inside of them. Particularly for individuals who are emotionally mature and deeply anchored in their own integrity. This propensity to project their fears in others becomes evident. These tactics are totally destroyed by the quiet force of emotional development. People that are self-assured and concentrated don't have to respond to manipulative techniques. These views are seen as manifestations of an internal conflict that is not yours, not that they are ignored. You maintain your energy level by remaining silent, which keeps you calm while the manipulator makes mistakes of his own. The truth is so obvious because of this contrast. Despite his best efforts to project control, the manipulator's behaviors show the exact opposite. Emotional reliance is seen in the need to create conditions in order to elicit one reaction from another. They need their response, participation, and affirmation of their significance. But if you decide not to play this game, all that's left is a gap that only they can fill. All of their doubts surface in this emptiness, not only for them, but also for everyone who sees them. Actively looking for this exposure is not required. While you decide to maintain your integrity while someone tries to manipulate you, it comes easily. His calm demeanor, disinterest, and capacity for seeing beyond outward manifestations provide a clear contrast with the manipulator's mindset. They scramble, frantically pursuing the domain they thought they had, while you remain calm and focused. And in the process, they reveal their fragility, which is precisely what they wanted to conceal. The irony of it all is that they expose their own flaws when they try to undermine you. What started out as a display of force turns into a vulnerability declaration in public. And if this vulnerability is not recognized and addressed, it manifests as emotional reliance, a fixation on approval, and a never-ending cycle of manipulation. Emotionally mature people, on the other hand, are unaffected and readily see this. You realize that the internal conflict that the other person is experiencing is what worries you, not these attitudes. Freedom comes from this insight. It allows you to assess the issue objectively without becoming emotionally invested, maintaining your calm and vitality. By behaving in this manner, you not only maintain your integrity, but also send a strong message. You are closed off to relationships that don't respect your character. Furthermore, this message is conveyed by its actions, more specifically, the absence of reactions, rather than by words. You progress when the manipulator falls into his own traps in an attempt to convince you or others of anything. This movement alone is a sign of strength, since it demonstrates that you are concentrating on what is really important, your own growth and trajectory. The handler anticipated you to enter the game, respond, and get interested. Therefore, this approach totally negates their aims, but you choose to be at peace. The truth is shown more clearly by this choice than by any confrontation. The manipulator is confronted with a harsh reality after losing the realm he thought he had. In addition to failing to accomplish the objective, their actions expose their own shortcomings. And while they struggle to keep up the illusion of authority, you continue to develop, advance, and live according to who you are. This is the biggest accomplishment, since it is about being faithful to oneself rather than conquering the other. You and the manipulator both benefit from this revealed reality. It serves as a reminder to you of the strength that is inside you. For them, it's an opportunity to reflect, identify their shortcomings, and maybe begin the healing process. Only the decision to choose honesty over manipulation has planted a seed, even if it is clear that not everyone will be ready for this. And this seed may sprout when the moment is perfect. You progress at the same time, becoming stronger, wiser, and more in line with your true self. When you progress while being true to who you are, the impact of your choice extends beyond appearances. By avoiding manipulative games, you create a genuine atmosphere that prevents dynamics based on control and insecurity from flourishing. It seems that you are reorganizing your interactions with others and with yourself by being loyal to your integrity. No notification or explanation is necessary for this alignment, since it is strongly felt by all who observe. The manipulator is now at a crossroads after being exposed. They must go within and confront the weaknesses that their activities have shown if they don't respond to support their strategies. Although this is a difficult time, things might change. because they must confront the root of these feelings in the absence of someone who can project their doubts. Not everyone, of course, takes this risk. Some continue the loop, trying to have other people experience the same dynamics. For others, however, this circumstance marks a turning point and a chance to begin the path of self-discovery and healing. The path is one of peace and continuous growth for you, who choose honesty. By refusing to respond to manipulation tactics, you become better at staying focused, no matter what happens outside of you. This is not to say that you don't feel the typical human emotions, such grief or irritation, but rather that you don't let them control your behavior. Instead, you recognize them, evaluate them, and go on, becoming stronger and more astute with each step. The manipulator is still coping with the fallout from his activities in the meanwhile. The truth is that the emotional connections they attempted to make have never held up over time. To function, they need responses, disagreements, and outside validation. Otherwise, the emptiness that was always concealed behind the facade is revealed by their clamor. And today, this emptiness, once concealed by the drama, cannot be denied. It's a mirror that shows the manipulator exactly what he was trying to avoid, that he needs to mend. Although it doesn't often seem like it, this mirror is a delight. It offers the manipulator a rare opportunity to grow, overcome his fears, and begin building a stronger emotional foundation. But only they have the power to decide this. However, you have already decided on your course of action. You no longer have to put up with other people's feelings and attitudes when you choose honesty. This just shows that you are aware of the boundaries between your responsibilities and those of others, not that you are callous or uninterested. Making this difference is essential to maintaining your inner peace. Because we think we can assist or save the next person, we are often drawn to engaging in manipulative interactions. In actuality, however, nobody is capable of doing this function in its place. Each of us has responsibility for our own growth, choices, and path. By acknowledging this, you not only save your energy, but also give others the chance to accept accountability for your deeds and their consequences. You go on, unburdened by your goals, even while the manipulator faces your own realities. The real transformation takes place during this movement. Maintaining your integrity not only makes you stronger, but it also inspires others to follow in your footsteps. Even if the manipulator is unaware of this at first, everyone around him will undoubtedly notice. Its actions serve as a tangible illustration of what it means to choose honesty over manipulation and peace over turmoil. And like the waves in a lake, this inspiration spreads. A strong message is reinforced when you choose integrity. You may live authentically without being sucked into games and dynamics that don't fit with its core. Even in a subtle way, this message is felt by everyone who comes into contact with them. Due to the magnetic nature of integrity, it draws people, opportunities, and experiences that resonate with their frequency. It simultaneously rejects things that don't align with its actual essence. You grow when the manipulator finds it difficult to face the realities shown by your behavior. The dynamics that attempted to confine you are removed with each step you take toward your own reality. And since it is founded on something that no one can take away from you, your connection to your true self, this growth has no limits. Even in the worst situations, this connection is what sustains, strengthens, and leads you. This is the point at which the handler and you both really change. Because choosing your truth not only leads to freedom, but also plants the seed for others to change. Even if it is not its duty to guarantee that this seed will flourish, the act of just planting it shows how strong integrity is. The handler is responsible for handling the consequences of his choices as you progress, stronger and more determined. But this setting also presents an opportunity, the chance to turn their flaws into assets, their doubts into confidence, and their manipulations into genuine connections. It will take time to see whether they can adjust to this difficulty. In the meanwhile, you persevere, unwavering, determined, and connected to your true worth. Few people really comprehend the power of detachment, yet it has a profound and life-changing impact. Refusing to play emotional games is a sign of true independence in a society where relationships and interactions are influenced by the desire for control, affirmation, or acceptance. When used wisely, silence is a powerful message rather than a sign of weakness or omission. It conveys the inability to articulate why you have chosen to keep your composure, vitality, and worth while avoiding being guided into situations that are inconsistent with your true self. Silence and remoteness may be unsettling for those who use manipulation to feel in control. They're waiting for a response. They really need it. Any response, whether it be one of outrage, grief, rage, or even a conciliatory attempt, fuels your tactics. But you may interrupt the pattern by refusing to respond and maintaining your objectivity. The handler is left with a gap that he is unable to fill when the energy that maintained the dynamics is removed. This emptiness is not something you created. Rather, it is a truth that has always been and has been concealed by efforts by others to project your fears onto you. The manipulator is forced to cope with this void when they choose not to take part. He must confront his own questions, worries, and weaknesses without his validation. Since they are often the parts of oneself that one is most frightened to confront, this may be unsettling. But the reality that separation reveals is that no one can hold the weight of another person's fears or fill their void. For you, separating oneself from others is a sign of respect and self-care. It is a sensible choice to save its energy and keep the attention on what is really important, not a defensive tactic. This does not mean that you should ignore or repress your emotions. Rather, it means that you should manage them in a healthy way, independent of outside factors. It recognizes that your inner peace is more valuable than any effort to control you, and that the best way to deal with someone's emotional tactics is often to remain silent. This attitude not only ensures its integrity, but also demonstrates a power that was unexpected by the manipulator. Detachment shows that you may be content without the approval or acknowledgement of others. He demonstrates your independence, safety, and self-awareness. Furthermore, even a quiet act of power has a greater impact than any dispute, because you go on, unaltered, while the manipulator is trapped in your doubts. It is important to realize that detachment does not mean harshness or apathy. You choose to care enough for yourself to stay out of relationships that drain your energy, but it doesn't imply you don't care. Because it recognizes that every person is in charge of his or her own feelings and choices, it is a sign of respect for you and for one another. By exercising detachment, you allow the other person to consider what you did and maybe start the process of change, even if it isn't explicit. The dissociation is followed by a powerful quiet that ends the loop of manipulation. It eliminates the presumption that you would react in a predictable way and be drawn to other people's emotional games. This stillness is full with significance rather than meaningless. Here, you may reassert your independence and worthwhile keeping in mind that you are alone responsible for your own feelings and attitudes. You are growing as the manipulator attempts to figure out why your tactics aren't working. You can focus your energies on things that are really important, like your objectives, healthy relationships, or personal growth, when you have detachment. It offers a place to concentrate on things that are constructive and beneficial, rather than squandering energy on things that don't contribute to their lives. Making this choice is freeing because it places you in the role of creator and takes you out of the role of reaction. He understands that by staying still, he keeps control of his own past. You have already outgrown this urge, even if the manager tries to guide you into his mess. And this transcendence, the capacity to maintain his composure in the face of external events, is what detachment represents. Since the manipulator anticipated you to play your game, this might be upsetting and even painful for him. On the other hand, you reformulate the criteria when you decide not to participate. You demonstrate that your power originates from inside, and that your worth is unaffected by the attention or approval of others. Despite being nonverbal, its message is powerful and obvious. I chose my peace, she says. I make my own choice. I decide to go forward. By taking this choice, you open the door to new experiences, connections, and chances in your life, in addition to ensuring your integrity. Because you create space for what really has worth by getting rid of what is no longer needed. As a result, detachment is a continuous process of self-confidence and growth, rather than just a response to manipulative techniques. It acts as a reminder that you are flawless, just the way you are, and that nobody or anything can change that. The degree of detachment alters not just how you relate to other people, but also how you see the world. It seems as if you begin a deeper connection with your true self by letting go of things that don't align with their core. He understands that he is saving parts of himself that were previously dispersed on dynamics that did not meet him by fending off efforts to manipulate or validate others. The foundation of detachment is this reconciliation with yourself. It is a technique that helps you reestablish a connection with your core, your purpose, and its essence. All of your judgments are guided by this fact, which serves as a lighthouse. You don't need to search for the internal validation you already possess when you remain silent with yourself. This gives the others a sense of lightness and freedom that is almost palpable, even if they are unsure of its precise source. You have found a path that transcends these limitations, even if many people are still caught in cycles of grace and control, trying to make up for them with other people's attention or energy. You realize that your energy is too important to be squandered on pointless activities, so you quit playing the same games. Everything is changed by this viewpoint. Not only are you protecting your energy when you practice detachment, but you are also opening the door to something more. Eliminating what is no longer yours makes place for the new, which is similar to organizing a mess full of mess. Every time anything new enters your life, it is higher and more in alignment with the frequency you are communicating. You are communicating to the world that you are ready for something better, more authentic, to express who you really are by distancing yourself from emotional games and manipulations. Those who attempted manipulation, however, continue to be trapped in their own loop. They encounter a mirror that reflects their own doubts in the absence of the energy required to sustain their tactics. The irony of detachment is that by remaining silent, you force the manipulator to confront the same thing he was trying to avoid. He understands that he can no longer rely on him to justify his behavior or allay his inner doubts. And without that path, the fissures start to show. But you shouldn't be concerned or pay attention to this, because practicing detachment also releases the urge to monitor or control what occurs to other people. It recognizes that their growth, like yours, is a personal path that no one can force or has the authority to quicken. You only owe it to yourself to maintain your vitality, integrity, and tranquility. You create a quiet but powerful example of living in harmony with your truth by behaving in this way. Silence in this situation does not indicate inaction, but rather the deliberate choice to avoid consuming things that are out of alignment with your values. You may work through your feelings here, reflect on your choices, and reaffirm your dedication to what really matters. And here you find a power you may not have known existed, because it takes courage to separate itself. When anything is trying to pull you down, it takes courage to say, I choose not to get involved. I choose my peace. Those who want to control you are completely disarmed by your fearlessness. They anticipated that you would reply, remain in the loop, and demonstrate your applicability. However, they are left without a barrier when you choose to remain silent and detached. And the contest just cannot go on without an opponent. You now see the real power of detachment. In addition to keeping you safe, it breaks the bad dynamics that were hurting you, allowing you to move on needlessly. Something much more lovely occurs as you advance. You start drawing people and situations that align with your vibe. Because detachment is making room for things that really have worth, in addition to letting go of things that are no longer helpful. You create a magnetic field that draws in everything that is in line with your truth by letting go. Have you ever stopped to wonder why, despite all your achievements, it feels like something essential is still missing? My name is Gabriel, and I've helped countless people like you discover the true spiritual power that resides within them. And today, I want to help you. If you feel like life is passing by while something important remains out of place, maybe it's time for an awakening. My audiobook, The Path of the Chosen, was created precisely for those who have reached this point. In this audiobook, I guide you to feel that enthusiasm for living in alignment with what truly matters, knowing that every step has meaning. Together, we'll transform your fears, traumas, and frustrations into powerful strengths that propel you to a new level of growth. Leave behind the feeling of spiritual isolation and find the peace of a true, constant connection with a greater energy that has always been by your side. Instead of fighting against what you feel, you'll learn to find purpose, serenity, and self-discovery to fill your inner world. This could be the beginning of a fuller, more meaningful life. I've seen it happen for so many others, and now it's your turn. Don't let this opportunity slip by. Click on the link pinned in the first comment and begin this journey with The Path of the Chosen. This is your chance to fill what's missing and finally live the life you deserve. I'll be waiting for you there. Of what was draining your energy. These new connections and opportunities come about because of the personal work you put into deciding to distance yourself. And this work never stops, since detachment is a continuous practice rather than a destination. There will always be challenges, people, and situations in existence that will test one's capacity to maintain concentration. But as time passes, you get stronger, more self-assured, and more conscious of your own abilities. You are strengthening your connection with your true self when you choose separation. No matter what occurs, this connection is what sustains, directs, and gives you the power to go on. It is important to keep in mind that detachment does not entail dismissing or rejecting your feelings. It involves recognizing your feelings, controlling them in a healthy manner, and ultimately choosing to resist letting them control you. It is about choosing truth over falsehoods, honesty over manipulation, and peace over strife. You not only liberate yourself by doing this, but you also inspire others to do the same. Detachment has the ability to not only change your life, but also to illuminate the path for those who are still pursuing the freedom you have attained. Those who attempt to create the comparison cycle fall into a trap that is fed by their own fears. The individual is really entering an emotional dynamic that is doomed to fail from the start when they attempt to replace someone else in order to arouse envy or reinforce their worth. Convinced that he can go on by offering a different alternative, the manipulator starts weighing every facet of this relationship against what was lost. The more you attempt to show the evolved reality, the more evident it becomes that the absence of the other created a gap that cannot be filled by superficialities. An emotional cage is created by this continual comparison. The new individual, who ought to stand for advancement, instead serves as a mirror of the past, but is unrepeatable. Every effort to replicate simply highlights how distinctive the original is, and the genuineness, vitality, and connection that once predominated become an unattainable pattern. Rather of breaking free, the handler becomes more and more caught up in this cycle, looking for approval in relationships that will never give him what he really needs, a feeling of fulfillment that can only be found inside. The irony is that when a manipulator tries to replace someone in order to arouse jealousy, he not only fails to achieve his goal, but also shows his own discontent. Those who see from outside may quickly see that the effort to portray the new is more about projecting an image of success and pleasure than it is about celebrating a genuine relationship. This need for outside approval is a tacit admission that, while not being consciously acknowledged or felt, the emptiness left by the other still exists. Those who are impacted by this effort at manipulation, however, go on unaffected by these dynamics. It is widely acknowledged that irreplaceable things do not need proof. The strength of authenticity comes from the fact that it cannot be replicated or recreated. A person is not scared by these efforts of replacement when he feels secure in himself and his abilities. The person is able to focus their energies on growth, sincere connections, and a bigger objective because of this security. It is really illuminating to see the disparity between people who have chosen to break free from the comparison cycle and those who are stuck in it. The other is in full development, unaffected by efforts to unsettle it, while the manipulator emotionally retreats, attempting to preserve the impression of evolution or overcoming. This freedom is a powerful statement because it demonstrates that no one's worth can be diminished by the choices or acts of another. People who live in harmony with their truth don't have to worry about other people's dynamics or vie for attention. Beyond these issues, there is an internal security. This dynamic's main idea is that the comparison cycle is distracting. It prevents the manipulator from looking within and addressing the real issues that need attention. The emphasis is on proving something to others, or even to oneself, rather than on pursuing self-awareness or personal growth. This tactic, however, never works since the issue was never someone else's fault. The emphasis was always on the manipulator's connection with himself. The comparison loop will continue until this connection is fixed, leading to annoyance, insecurity, and dissatisfaction. Conversely, those who choose to disengage from this cycle are engaging in an act of liberation. The person denies the manipulator's intentions power by refusing to engage in the comparison dynamic. This is done out of self-love rather than contempt or indifference. Refusing to invest energy in something that generates value is a smart move, and by making this choice, the person is able to keep growing and connect with people and situations that are genuine to who they are. The other is living life to the fullest, while the manipulator is trapped trying to prove something. This is how reacting and creating differ from one another. While those who create are building a world that reflects their own goals and values, those who react are always influenced by what occurs around them. This difference is what separates those who are content with themselves from others who continue to look to others for approval. Furthermore, this serenity is a gift that cannot be bought, earned, or duplicated. It is the outcome of an individual's work, dedication to its own genuineness, and reluctance to let other people's opinions or expectations mold it. The comparison loop turns into a covert jail for the manipulator. Without understanding that this approach just confines it to the past, it continues to assess its worth in terms of what has been lost. The other, however, has true freedom, the ability to live without the weight of other people's expectations, free from manipulative or emotional games. The individual may thrive because of this independence, while the manipulator is trapped in his own web of doubt. In the end, the comparison cycle harms the one who used it, rather than helping the one who has been deceived. Because the manipulator is unable to move ahead in a genuine manner, and instead clings even more tightly to what was lost. This dynamic, however, merely acts as a reminder of the strength of emotional independence for individuals who have made the decision to separate. It's evidence that you are making your own decisions when you decide not to respond, compete, or participate. Additionally, this choice gives you the freedom to live a life that not only represents who you are, but also enables you to be your best self, free from constraints, weight, and comparisons. When manipulation techniques are used to drive attention-seeking, it's like attempting to fill an infinite hole. People that engage in this kind of conduct encounter a decreased frequency, where they see outside approval as an essential component to maintain their sense of self. But in reality, this strategy is a trap. The manipulator loses sight of an important component, the capacity to see one's own worth, by depending on other people's responses to feel relevant. Typically, these deceptive games provide a surface-level facade of assurance, but a closer look reveals the hollowness they conceal. The desire to fabricate circumstances that draw attention from others is a sign of fragility rather than power. People who use these tactics often think that by getting attention, they will be acknowledged in some way, which will make them feel whole. On the other hand, the exact reverse occurs. The necessity behind such acts becomes more evident the more attention is frantically sought. This is where the irony lies. Attention that is acquired by deceit is never genuine. It results from an induced reaction rather than genuine recognition, and this is a crucial difference. In the end, those who use this method to get attention are never really content. Since they can't find the confirmation they're looking for elsewhere, the hole they're trying to fill remains. And so the cycle goes on, a never-ending loop of looking, trying to get attention, and playing games that wear out the manipulator and the people he attempts to control. Conversely, the person who refrains from playing these games has a subtle but powerful strength. The absence of response is a sign of maturity rather than disdain. This serves as a reminder that your energy is too important to be wasted on pointless interactions. This focused and clear mindset creates a stark contrast to the manipulator's actions. He engages in disputes in an attempt to prove something to others or to himself, while the opposing party stays steadfast and motivated by a higher goal. Everyone in the vicinity notices this disparity, however unconsciously. Respect and appreciation are shown for the person who maintains his integrity and refuses to be swayed by deceptive tactics. Because balance, inner peace, and a sincere connection to oneself are qualities that we all aspire to, even if we are not always conscious of it. These qualities cannot be forced or reproduced. They result from emotional maturity, self-awareness, and a dedication to what is really important. Conversely, the manipulator's incessant attention-seeking pushes others away. People around them experience emotional tiredness as a result of their conduct, since their constant desire for approval is a weight that no one can bear for very long. And despite the anguish, this separation cannot be avoided, because a controlled atmosphere is not conducive to the development of genuine connections. They need trust, sincerity, and a healthy ratio of giving to getting. And just trying to get attention won't give you that. The biggest victory for people impacted by these tactics is staying out of the fray. You keep your peace and energy by not responding. Refrain from being caught up in a never-ending loop. By behaving in this way, you also send a powerful message that something bigger than other people's efforts to control you is guiding your life. It is not necessary to use words to convey this point. You can see it. Additionally, its impact is significantly more profound than you may think. You are creating something tangible while the manipulator is in his drama cycle and attempting to prove his worth by outward acts. You are concentrating on your growth, objectives, and course. In the end, this divide separates those who are moving toward a greater objective from others who live at a low frequency. Because what matters most is how you view yourself and what you are doing in the world, not how other people see you. Attention-seeking is a fleeting competition that never leads to true success. Although the manipulator may get the immediate attention they want, they forfeit something much more important: the opportunity to learn about their own value, form true connections, and lead a genuine life. And you are attaining freedom while he is caught in this loop. You are developing, growing, and becoming stronger, because you made the decision to concentrate your efforts on things that are really valuable. It is this choice that transforms your life. It gives you the flexibility to develop, create, and interact with people and situations that are in line with your own self. Ultimately, it is what is really valuable. The inner peace and clarity that result from living with purpose, however, last forever, even when other people's attention may be fleeting. Regardless of what is going on around you, they are what keep you going, encourage you, and give you direction. You may break free from manipulative relationships and any need for outside acceptance by realizing the pointlessness of attention-seeking. You may live completely, authentically, and in harmony with your true self, thanks to this freedom. You not only better yourself by living this way, but you also inspire others to do the same. Because your power, clarity, and peace serve as a reminder that there is a better way to live, one that is determined by your own viewpoint rather than by others. Because it is only legitimate for those who want to join. The game that the manipulator attempts to create via his strategies and emotional manipulations is a fruitless endeavor. The game simply loses its significance if players choose not to participate, respond, or follow the recommended dynamics. There are no pieces, no game, and no rules that apply to you. The manipulator will stop at nothing to elicit a response, but the strategy will fail when confronted with someone who is not prepared to commit to these confrontations. This unwillingness to get engaged is a powerful demonstration of emotional strength rather than indifference. It comes from having a profound awareness of what is really significant and realizing that your energy is too precious to be squandered on pointless tactics. You are not ignoring the problem when you decide not to become involved. Rather, you are choosing to respond in a manner that demonstrates your maturity, your purpose, and your connection to something bigger. The manipulator finds this unsettling. Every move they planned was predicated on their estimation of your reaction. In order to justify their behavior and preserve the image of power, they need your reaction. But if this response does not come, if you stay focused and unflinching, truth sets in, the control you believed you had never had. Instead of fighting you, they were fighting a projected image, a reflection of their own doubts. For people who want to be in charge, this vision may be disastrous. They are forced to confront what they have always avoided, themselves, once they see that their tactics have no impact on you. They have to confront the inner emptiness that led them to behave in this manner if they don't have the game to keep them entertained or their response to distract them. And it is now untenable to disregard this gap, which was previously concealed by manipulative dynamics. You move on in the interim. By choosing not to play, you are able to focus your energies on something that is really important: your own growth, genuine connections, and own path. Since authenticity is unaffected by expectations or how other people see you, it becomes your greatest strength. It comes from inside, from a point of sincerity that no amount of external influence can sabotage. The manifestation of true triumph occurs at this stage. Staying loyal to who you are, no matter what is happening around you, is more important than overcoming the manipulator or proving anything to him. You can defeat lesser energies, pointless arguments, and games that never made sense to you because of your emotional fortitude and sense of purpose. In addition to preserving your mental tranquility, this transcendence takes you to a place where you may keep developing, learning, and connecting with what really matters. In contrast, the manipulator is caught in a chain of events that he initiated. The game disintegrates as you attempt to control it, because there is no real return and a huge amount of energy is needed to keep this illusion going. The fact that the game never existed for you is just made more apparent by each futile attempt and failing attempt. This may surprise you since the manipulator has put so much effort into this story that he is now facing the consequences of his own creation. These repercussions, however, don't matter to you. You have already made the decision to go on and made the decision to focus your energy on what motivates you rather than what tries to bring you down. Your path is determined by this choice. It makes it feasible to produce something really unique that captures your spirit, values, and goals. Few people can feel the freedom you enjoy, whereas the manipulator is caught in a vicious circle of his behavior. The difference between those who live really and those who are still caught up in emotional games is this freedom. It comes from a strong connection to who you are and why you are here, not from outward successes or approval from others. It allows you the courage to let go of things that don't connect, to reject things that aren't helpful, and to move toward things that are really valuable. And although it's not always easy, this path leads to growth, peace, and contentment. In the end, the non-existent game was a learning experience for those who attempted to make it rather than a loss for you. By declining to take part, you have shown that there is a better way to live, one that is founded on self-love, honesty, and purpose, rather than control, manipulation, or approval from others. And this lesson is a seed that may lead to transformation, even if the manipulator does not immediately understand it. You continue at the same time, becoming stronger, more determined, and more aware of your true self. Because the true triumph was always yours, and never someone else's. About your capacity to put your peace first, be loyal to who you are, and lead a life that reflects your truth. Of all the victories, this is the most impressive. It's also yours.